Greetings, citizen. Welcome to the show, and thank you for listening. For more of the art of wargaming in your life, definitely check us out on Instagram and Facebook. If you'd like to support the show, we have a Patreon account where you can do just that for as little as $1 a month. What we can offer will expand as the show does. If you don't have extra funds but would still like to help us out, you can give us a like, share, or 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. Want to get in touch? Feel free to message us or hit up our email, artofwargamingpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to continuing the conversation with you because we know the world is vast, with many different ideas on tactics and strategy that can be applied to the games we enjoy.
You're listening to the Art of Wargaming on the Ear Firm Network.
On War. Nashville Armored Combat.
Welcome to the Art of Wargaming on the Earworm Network. I am Yaga Malark. Today's episode concerns Nashville Armored Combat and some of the excellent fighters I was able to speak with there. And that's basically it. I've just been kind of on the grind recently, working at making sure that the Night Codex is kind of good in my hands. Just picked that up recently. Been running some games. My first game in my league was against a Necron player who had been with his codex obviously far longer, and was very good with his army, played the objectives well, and trounced me. So I have a lot to work with. I'm examining and re-examining my list just to see what I might be able to tweak to make it a little bit better next time. So work in progress, hoping to do a little bit better in my next game in the league. Otherwise, yeah, I think we'll keep the intro nice and short and sweet, and we're going to go into our interviews with some awesome fighters from Nashville Armored Combat.
Here with me right now is Kelsey the Killer from Nashville, and I have just watched an amazing bout of combat in your gym. Kelsey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Of course, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So what I've seen out there is very much like any other sort of sporting event. It's a lot like boxing, where you have there's the seating, there's a really cool announcer, the music, the lights. How did this happen? How did this come together? It seems like such a niche thing to have such a wide audience.
Yeah, it has slowly grown, specifically in this city. We all started in Mickey's backyard, training for hours upon hours on just random sporadic days, and then more people started to show up, so we gained more of a schedule, more of a following, and then there was 10 of us who decided to invest in the business of NAC, and we started that process back in October of last year. And our grand opening was in January, and then we opened officially February 1st. And since then, we have had a Wednesday night fight night, I believe, every single week since then. No matter what, no matter how many of us are not feeling well, no matter how many people are injured. Like, I've certainly injured myself during one of the fights.
As fighters do.
As fighters do. I was being very stupid. But, yeah, we would not be able to do any of this without the community that we've built here. It's incredible to have such an amazing group of people.
And what I would imagine is that you've drawn that community to you. From the presentation that I've seen here, I mean, obviously it takes dedicated people in order to make sure that it happens, make sure it goes off. But I can only imagine that it brings in people as well. People who see it and they're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, we for sure. Anytime someone comes up to us afterwards and they're like, oh my God, thank you so much. We're like, no, thank you. Because like, if no one were here, it would just be us fighting.
Sure.
So...
Well, you put on a fantastic show.
We've got a lot of people who have had putting on show experience and production and performing and all of that kind of stuff. So they have brought that to the table for sure.
Perfect.
100%.
Well, owning this gym, you have to understand what goes into this physically, because when you're watching it, it's impressive in the ring, but there are so many hours outside of the ring that go into making this as impressive and as real as it is. Would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about what that process is like?
Well, the process as far as like fighting, or the process of like the gym itself?
Sure, both.
Okay, well, gym itself, I mean, there's setup, there's tear down, there's just little things like that, maintaining cleanliness, obviously. But as far as fighting, we train. We have classes every single day. and we train primarily, I'd say, skills, but we also do throw in like conditioning and very specific things that certain people need to work on. Like,
Sure.
For example, my footwork is shit, so like, that's something that I have to work on. And a lot of us will also train on our own, or we will have private training sessions with each other. But it's just constant encouragement from your teammates and members of the other teams.
Sure.
Like, constant encouragement. But we also have to maintain our armor to make sure that it's safe. Frankie does a fantastic job of that. He actually teaches an armor repair class Wednesdays to kind of prep everything for fight night to make sure it's safe, and then also Thursdays to kind of repair all the stuff that gets broken on Wednesdays. So he's our armorer repair dude for sure, and he's awesome.
Well, that's something we don't really consider in our particular community. I'm part of the Bellegarth community, and we have armor, and occasionally it needs new rivets or whatever, but it's not metal armor, and it's not having metal swung at it.
Yeah.
That's a very specific process, I imagine.
Yeah, it's very specific, and he's actually been doing this. Him and Ryan have been doing this longer than any of us, I believe. I know they took a break for a while, but they've definitely been in it longer than the rest of us, and they're incredible.
I've been enjoying watching all of this. And like I said, I'm looking out there, and I've worn leather armor within Bellegarth, and even that takes a certain amount of endurance, a certain amount of constitution to wear. But what I'm seeing out there is full metal.
Yes.
How do you condition yourself in order to be able to bear that kind of weight and still be able to be an effective fighter?
So, for starters, we don't put anyone in armor for the first couple months until they have trained for a certain amount of time consistently, just because it is very dangerous. We've had that proven multiple times.
Sure.
So we've definitely taken that into account and made sure that it's safe for everybody. Once we reach a certain point, we will put people in armor for the first time just to have them like feel what it's like, and then we initiate them, and we'll have one of our veteran fighters kind of break them in during open sparring nights on Fridays. And there's no crowd around it for that or anything. That's more training. It's more of a class. But from there, we kind of have them get a feel for it, because sometimes it's hard cardio-wise. Sometimes it's hard. You can't keep your arms up. Sometimes you can't move your legs properly.
Right.
So, like, it's very specific to each fighter. Usually everyone's first time in armor just sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it's just awful.
Well, if you've never worn it before, I imagine.
Yeah,
it's
because your
difficult
body's
moving.
like, what are you doing to me right now?
Right.
But again, we will do very specific conditioning and very specific like workouts. Like one of the workouts we do almost every class is you've got a sword and a shield, and you have to hold it for 90 seconds.
Like a full weighted sword and a full weighted shield.
Yes. And then you get 20 seconds rest, I believe it's 20 seconds. And then you have to do it 90 seconds again, but then we add some footwork. And then you get another little break, and then we just continuously do that, and it's like a 10-minute conditioning thing. It's god awful. And the very end is you have to, in your shield hand, you have to also hold your sword, and you have to hold it straight out in front of you for 90 seconds.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it can't be up high, and if you drop it, you have to drop it completely and then reset.
Now, for our listeners' sake, how heavy are these weapons that we're talking about? The shield and these swords. How heavy are
Swords can range anywhere between like 3 pounds to 4 pounds, I believe, sword-wise. Shields, I think, are a little bit heavier. I actually don't know how heavy our shields are. That's something I should know. So thanks for asking me that question.
And you know, it's not an exact thing, but for what it sounds like, I mean, even for us who do a foam fighting game, it is difficult for us to be able to do such a thing. To imagine, and we're dealing with like what, an 11-ounce weapon or something along those lines, and so what you're dealing with here in terms of just the weight training that is necessary. You were mentioning footwork. For something like what I do, footwork is pretty easy. I watch like any old, martial arts sort of footwork training.
Yeah.
Heck, even dancing training influenced what I did. But I don't have the sheer amount of weight to like move in, or the sheer amount of weight to move through the weapons. What kind of different footwork training goes into that?
We actually have a couple of people, specifically on the women's team, who have had a dance background, and their footwork is typically better than the rest of us. I have no rhythm whatsoever, so it's just been awful. So footwork drills, we'll practice stepping at like angles and practice keeping our weapon foot forward, just because that's typically how we train, and maintaining a wider stance, because we try to explain, like, if you have a more narrow stance, you could get knocked over.
Well, yeah.
So And we'll also do, we call them the Circle of Doom? Doom of Doom. We've got horrible names for these exercises.
Doom.
Yeah, basically. Where you start off really slow and you have to just kind of penguin walk sideways in a circle for a certain amount of time while holding your weapons up.
Oh my.
And then you do that a couple times, and then as you go, you slowly increase to where you're doing a full gallop in a circle together. And you'll switch sides, go different directions kind of thing. We also have judo classes, and that helps a lot with, foot placement as far as like going for throws or even just throwing a good punch.
Sure.
So we do incorporate some judo and Muay Thai and boxing even.
You can definitely see the Muay Thai influence out there with
Oh
some of
yeah,
those kicks.
yeah. No, it's great. I've grown to be a very big fan of kicking.
And it's not something we do as much in what we do. We kick shields and that sort of thing. But I was watching some of these kicks to people, and I was like, "That's awesome!"
Yeah, it's a
looks
good
like
time.
So much fun.
It's a lot of fun, especially when it works.
All
like
right.
when it does what it's supposed to. It's very satisfying.
So this is it's violent.
Very violent.
Most people would rather sit on their couches and watch this sort of thing.
Yes.
What pushes an individual to want to get out there into this ring and actually have the huevos,
Fair.
the balls, the ovaries, whatever you want to say, to get out there and do this? Like it's impressive. It's impressive.
So it is very violent, and that's a hard question to answer because what we have found is that everyone in this community has a similar something in common, but we all get in it for different reasons.
Sure.
It is very violent. It's violent on it's very tolling physically. It's very tolling mentally, certainly emotionally. So it's definitely not for everybody, and we certainly don't. Like, we've had people come, try it out, and they're like, "Nah." Absolutely not. And that's totally fine.
Sure.
We never want to pressure anyone to do this because it's f***ing weird, and it's a lot of work, and it's terrifying. I mean, your friends are punching you in the face and trying to kill you.
It sounds like a good time to me.
Yeah,
but-
it's totally fine. But yeah, I think there's different things that push different people.
What about you personally?
Me personally, I didn't think that this is something that I would ever get into. It was kind of like I'll come try it out, and then I did, and I just never stopped. But this is the first thing I have never quit just because I wasn't good at it.
Right.
Like, this is the first time I've just not stepped away from something because it's like, I suck at this, I'm done. And the community and the friends we've made and what it's done for me and my mental health, like, I probably wouldn't still be here without this.
Because it gives you focus.
It gives me focus, and it teaches you so much about who you are, but it's very patient with you.
Oh, sure.
It goes at your own pace. Like, I've been in therapy for years, but I started getting more out of it when I started doing this. It really opens your eye, and it's very self-discovering.
Sure. Well, and it seems like it would be extremely, what's the word? Cathartic.
Yes.
Being out there,
Very.
and whether you're hitting somebody or being hit, there's just that energy to it. There's just this. Anybody who's a fighter, you understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's such a unique experience, and certainly, like, I have zero athletic background.
See, I wouldn't believe that you look like you have an athlete's body. Like, I just look at it, I can see. Like, you laughed, and I see your muscles. Your muscles are.
I mean, I used to ride and train horses when I was young.
Okay.
That's the extent of my competing any kind of sport. I only have one kidney, so technically I'm not supposed to be doing it like this.
Well done.
But it's totally fine.
Outstanding. I mean, is there any other words of encouragement, any other sort of motivation that you might say to somebody who might want to try something like this?
Well, specifically coming from my experience, one of the biggest questions we get is, are there any women in this sport? And there are.
Sure.
And they're incredible. And just, they're so gorgeous, and they're so just fantastic people all around. And they're all over the country. They're all over the world. And this brings us all together somehow. Even if we're not, like, super close friends, like, we're still connected to each other. Like, my helmet has one twin, like, there's just 2 helmets like this in the entire world, and it's owned by one of the women fighters internationally.
Okay.
So I reached out to her and I was like, "Hey, nice helmet," and she was like, "Oh my God, is it you? You have the other one?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we're like wanting to fight each other one day.
That's outstanding.
And we'll, the odds of that happening right now, I don't know, but just little things like that. But specifically when it comes to women, is that us here, NAC is a safe place to come, because it's very violent, and it comes across as a predominantly male sport,
Sure.
as most sports do,
Sure.
because of society.
Yeah.
But we have cultivated a safe culture here, and we want people to know that, both for men and women.
Sure.
But coming from helping lead the women's team here, it's very important to us that women know that it's safe to be here.
And that's an excellent place for women to be too, because like you said, this is such a stereotypically a male-dominated, fighting is male, or
knights.
whatever the case may be.
And like, oh, women were never knights in history, and it's like
These are folks who never read about Joan of Arc or Boudica or
Yeah.
anything, or the Queen of the Scythians.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's also like, we're also here now, so
Right.
what are you going to do about it?
Absolutely, and it's good. I'm glad that we have this message for our female listeners, being like, there is a place for this, even though it seems overly represented by the male. It sounds like there's an absolutely fantastic community of women who do this as well.
Yeah, and we are fully supported and encouraged by our male fighters.
That's outstanding.
Like, they're one of the main reasons that we are such a safe environment here. Never once have we felt unsupported by them. And they always make us feel represented. They always make us feel seen in the most incredible ways. So we feel safe on our own because we're trained to be able to take care of ourselves,
Sure.
but we're also very well taken care of by
Right.
our fellow fighters.
So it sounds like it's almost a dichotomy in this place, where you have this extreme violence, borderline like danger, but also it's a very safe space for people to be and express themselves and train themselves and be a part of the community.
Yeah, and we're very mental health conscious here. Like, I certainly have cried multiple times in my helmet, even during a fight.
Hell, I have.
Yeah, it's emotional, and
Right.
even if there's a going on in your life, and it just all swells up in that one moment, you're like, well,
Right.
and it's awful. We train as far as like when you're in a fight, you're in a fight.
Right.
And it goes to that when you walk into the ring, you're walking in respecting your opponents, their dedication to being there.
Right.
Because it's not just you. So you push through whatever the you can.
Sure.
When we're training, when we're on our own, we'll stop.
Right.
Like we take care of each other. We make sure that everyone is okay, and also helping each other be aware of our triggers,
Right.
so that we can be mindful of that.
Sure. And there is
very
the absolute respect that you see out there. Again, it's a very violent sport. You can see people actually hitting each other.
Yeah.
But beforehand, there's the tap of the weapons. There's the deference to your opponent. Like somebody goes down, and I saw tonight, somebody took a knee hit.
Yeah.
And everybody backed off immediately.
Yeah.
And the second that the flag was thrown, everybody was very respectful of that.
Yeah.
Because even though you're out to hurt each other,
Very much
you're
so.
not actually out to hurt each other.
Yeah, we go for pain. We don't go for injury.
Right.
And we also train to recognize the difference between those two things. And certainly when you go to a tournament, you'll get pain compliance out.
Sure.
Like you're done, you're toast. But we're friendly here.
Good.
Like we're not trying to kill each other here.
I dig it.
At an actual tournament, maybe a little bit. But we try to be as safe as we can here.
Outstanding. Well, you know what? I appreciate you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate you guys asking me. Very
No,
much so.
you've done absolutely outstanding. And again, this is what out of Nashville?
National Armored Combat. And yeah.
There was a house associated with it too, wasn't there? Or a clan? Or I remember.
Oh, our women's team?
Yes.
The Alicorns.
The Alicorns?
The Alicorns,
The
yeah.
Alicorns. The Alicorns out of Nashville. If you haven't heard of them, check them out. Do you all have a YouTube channel or something
We
like that?
don't have a YouTube, but we have a Facebook and an Instagram.
Outstanding. Check that out, y'all. And I'm going to stick around here and hang out with these folks because they're really cool.
Thank you so much.
So, we have Mickey here from the Nashville. What's your organization called again?
Nashville Armored Combat.
Nashville Armored Combat. Mickey, I just watched you rock that cage tonight. You pulled a lot of different moves that were absolutely incredible, and by the end of the night, it seemed as though you were outpacing your opponents, like endurance-wise. I was watching you continue to be out there on your feet, fighting well, while your opponents, who were also fighting well most of the night, were flagging. Mickey, I was very impressed, and I want to know, in full armor with heavy weapons, how do you do this?
Lots of training, man.
Yeah?
I mean, again, you're right. All of them are great fighters, and thank you for the compliments and everything. Like, turning red, right? It's just, when I'm done with a fight night, or when I'm done, teaching classes, I go and do my 6-mile run. When I wake up in the morning, I'm doing my training. So I train myself 7 days a week while I'm also teaching classes 7 days a week. So I'm constantly training. Mainly I'm trying to compensate for my heart condition that I have right now. I have AFib and A-flutter. So when the act's up, I have no strength. And so it's just guts at that moment. It'll come and go. So that's why I train so hard. I'm looking forward to seeing what it'll be like on the other side of my last surgery. If I'll just be good like everybody else or whatever. But yeah, outpacing people really just takes having a good cardio floor, and then ergonomic behaviors when you're out there fighting people, knowing when to give up on throws, knowing when to leave takedowns, knowing how to swing your weapon correctly, punching correctly, all that. So every move that I do out there, besides the stupid flashy ones that I'm goofing off because I'm just
like that
having
wall
fun.
run. If you guys are watching the YouTube feed, you will absolutely see a particular video of an armored person doing a wall run to knock somebody. That was Mickey, by the way, who was doing that. So
Well, I tried 3. One worked. I got over the guy and then threw him down to the ground because he's tall. And the second guy caught me, of course,
Yeah,
running on the opposite side. He punched me in the face and it fell over like an idiot. But that last one, we had talked about it. We had me and Jacob have been training. He's been training a little longer than I have actually, but I'm the one that taught him a bunch of stuff about pro fighting because I traveled and learned this information all over the United States, studying underneath the best fighters that are available to me. And so he's a really, really good fighter. And we just joked about it, like, hey, now I'm back out here. Do you want to do some flashy stuff that, we don't normally get to do because the skill that we have a lot of newer people fighting with us. It may not be there yet they might have to just focus their energy on getting the fight done.
Sure.
Whereas me and Jacob will do silly stuff. And so we agreed if we made it to the end that we'd try it. And I thought he was gonna rock me, dude. He's what, 275, and then
he's a big man.
Yeah, 6'5", maybe something like that. And I think I just got higher than him. I just closed my eyes. I thought I was gonna get knocked on my ass.
So your eyes were closed for that move?
Yeah, I just got up in the air and I threw my fist out. I don't know which one it was, my left or right. Don't remember anything. And it just landed on my feet. It was like.
It looked perfectly executed. And if it was at all choreographed, it did not appear so.
We just said run the wall, and we agreed to it, and so we did. And I think I just got higher than him, and that's all I remember. So I'll have to watch the tape to see.
Again, this will be on our YouTube feed as soon as I can remember to put it up there, because that was absolutely outstanding. I loved that, and from what you're saying, again, there's an incredible amount of athleticism that goes into this. That's obvious. Because again, you're out there in heavy armor with heavy weapons going at this for a long time. It wasn't just like a half-hour stint. How long were you guys out there?
Technically, I think we were out an hour and a half before we switched over, took the intermission, and then did the all-be-all.
Right.
So that's usually not how we do things here. We just wanted to try a new format. We were going to introduce team fighting because there's a lot of fighters here, and I don't think it's fair to set up one team that's just going to represent Nashville. Like we want to set up multiple teams. So the way we do it is it's teams of 3 to 5, men and women included, and they compete to be the team that travels and represents Nashville. So we have a bunch of tournaments, and we keep it at 5 because when you go to a tournament, technically you're supposed to bring 8 because you fight with 5 and have 3 alternatives. So even if you brought your whole team, if the world leaders wanted to bring their entire team from Nashville somewhere, they still have to bring 3 from another team.
Okay.
So we try to keep it fair. And everybody's a great fighter, and nobody gets on a team because they are trying to build the best team. What they're doing is they're getting people who have the same schedule and the same attitude about how they fight and same style maybe, and they're trying new things. Like I was just murking for both teams tonight.
I
bouncing
saw
back
that
and
a
forth.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just because a lot of people were sick, so I stepped in.
Sure.
And every first and third round, I'd sub out for one of the other teams until the Scare Bears didn't have anybody left, and then
Right.
I just stayed in for the last 3 rounds.
Well, because real injuries happen out here. We saw that tonight, where like I saw a dude go down. I was among the people cheering because I thought it was just and it was like, whoa, wait a second, that guy looks like he's actually hurting.
Yeah, it looked like Frankie hyperextended his knee real bad. Foot sweeps are a big part of our sport because the idea is just to knock him to the ground because you can get in a very advantageous position, especially in armor. You don't get to slip away from somebody. You go down and you're down usually. Yeah, he took a hard kick to the back of the leg and it split him out. I know I kicked him once in the leg and gave him the full splits. So he was just eating shit. And then he was on my team, and then I went to kick the other guy's leg, and I ended up kicking his leg.
Lord.
But they both went down, so cool. Win for me. But yeah, dude, hyperextended knees happen a lot.
Sure.
And it's usually not from the kicks, it's usually from bad takedowns, bad like throws. A lot of people step past people's knees and isolate their knees against theirs and then bend them over it, and it'll rip their ACLs, a bunch of knee injuries. So
Now, I'm sure we have some people in our community who do the sort of fighting that you do. How do you avoid that? Like, if you're on the person on the other side, and yes, there's bad sweeps, yes, there's bad takedowns, but if you're on the person on the other side of that, is there something that you can do to prevent that injury?
lose.
You lose.
Dude, no, literally, like, if you're in a position and your leg's gonna get blown out, swallow your pride and go down. Like, like, if we're getting paid for this, then yeah, maybe push through and, like,
Right.
go talk to your physician and then be back in 4 months or whatever after you get shot up with a bunch of knee. Like, in our sport, though, right now, it's a sport of passion at the moment. We are trying to orchestrate something with all the leagues to make it professional, but at this point, you're out there just fighting for pride and, honestly, to honor the other person's sacrifice to get there, because it's hard to do that.
Right.
And it's expensive. And so if you go out there and you're going down because of a throw, you're still going down. Just go down. All you got to do is move your leg a little bit, and you'll be able to avoid that. Sometimes it is unavoidable, but it's same thing with every sport that you do.
Right.
Like, it's impossible to keep yourself from injury
Right.
all the time.
I mean, we do a foam fighting sport, and I've absolutely broken knuckles and hyperextended knees and had concussions, even from foam weapons. So I can only imagine that that's even accentuated by the fact that you're swinging like steel at each other.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, I pulled a lot of my sword strikes out there. I didn't go for gaps. I didn't do any of that. I just hit on steel to get them knowing that I'm there.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
But yeah, no matter what sport you do, you're going to have injuries. We just try to mitigate them as much as possible. And just in general, when we do train here, if you go to all the classes and hang out here and train to get into the cage, you'll be given different workouts that are built around stabilization. So even if I'm teaching you how to deadlift or overhead press, I'm going to set you up with another workout routine that's going to build your stabilizers around it, so we don't skip steps.
Right.
My personal trainer is down in Miami. He works with Daru Strong camp down there. They train MMA fighters, UFC, bare knuckle boxers.
Sure.
So they usually check what I'm doing or give me things that they want me to do, and I funnel that down to my crew. So, no matter what they're doing, I'll make sure to pop in and be like, now do this, because this will make your shoulder healthy, this will make your knee healthy, like
Right.
anything that I can do to mitigate some of these accidents, like, the better. We've had a lot of people get injured real quick,
Sure.
and if you talk to Kelsey, you would know that we don't put people in armor right away.
Right.
Unlike other camps that will just strap you in armor, think you'll get the bug,
Right.
and then then you'll be addicted and you'll come and train with them. Like, they're kind of desperate for people to train with them, and when people come here, we're like, here's a sword, here's a tire, and you're going to hit this for about 3 weeks before I even think about letting you hit somebody else with a foam stick.
Right.
And
Kind of like the whole wax on, wax off, making sure that you understand the motions and the muscle memory before you actually get into the combat. Yeah.
Well, there's that, and the fact that it takes 45 minutes to armor up, if the armor, like, fits you.
Right.
Let alone me running around trying to find you lender armor. And then you're going to get burnt out and tired, like, in the first, 10 seconds. Right? I build it up to the point where in a month or a month and a half, you're able to put on armor and, like, get through a couple full 1-minute rounds, 2-minute rounds, like, against somebody in a good sparring match. And you get to just enjoy yourself more.
Right.
Like, nothing's more frustrating. Like, I train an MMA fighter here, and nothing frustrates him more than when he puts on a gauntlet, you know, and he's not used to that, and he has to swing a sword for 15 minutes for me.
Sure.
And he's just like, this is so maddening. I'm just like, good, we need to do that, because when you go into the cage, if I just put you in armor, you would hate it, and you'd quit. Because when I put on armor, I actually almost quit.
Right.
I got my armor in the mail, I strapped it all on me, I walked outside, it was August, and I couldn't get it off, I couldn't walk. I just laid there in the sun and thought I was going to die. That was my first time in armor, because I never trained for this.
Sure.
Know? Yeah, it's a miserable experience. Fighting in armor was meant for war, and it's not fun. It's fun if you train and you're ready to be in armor.
Right.
But nobody should ever do it without training.
And that was something that Kelsey was saying earlier too, is that there is this long process. There is this training that happens before you even touch the armor, because, like you say, it is a totally different world. Momentum generation and making sure that you can actually, and again, looking at you make it look easy in the ring. Looking at that, I'm just kind of like, I could be Neo out there doing the Matrix thing as well, and I'd be just fine. But then, of course, I'm looking at you right now with your armor off, and I'm like, no, there's a lot of work that goes into this.
There's a ton of work, man. Like, I mean, I wasn't fit like this or anything that I was at before. I was a smoker and a drinker. You know, I'm coming up on my 2-year. Been out of the sport for almost just as long as I've been in it.
Dang.
With injuries and heart surgeries and stuff. So yeah, like, all this changed. I could probably do 30 seconds on a Pel with a stick, and my arms would be tired and sore, and my shoulders would hurt, and I could barely breathe, and running up and down a hill a couple times was awful, you know. But now it's just like, all right, see you guys. I'm gonna, you know, hit this joint and go for a 6-mile run. I'll see you guys, you know, at 1 a.m. Like, now it's easy, but it just took every single day of being obsessed about the sport. And the takedowns and stuff like that I did, that, like you said, look easy. Like, it's not.
Right.
It's really not. It's really exhausting. But I thought the same thing when I found the show Night Fight. That's on. It was on Hulu. I don't know where the it's at now. BBC has it probably. But Night Fight looked really easy, and what it was is they would have them fight for like a minute or 90 seconds, and they get like 20-minute breaks in between.
Oh.
Right. Before they would do the next round, and they kind of glamorized it, and I mean, people still got hurt. They still got hips broken and stuff. Like, so they were resting until they were completely fresh, and then fighting again, and still getting murdered.
Dang.
Like, I mean, fighting for $10,000, that'll happen, right?
Sure.
But
you're hitting to win really bad at that point.
yeah. So, man, like, it doesn't happen overnight. There's only a couple people that I've, like, and a lot of them come from different backgrounds than you think. LARPers, rock climbers. Trying to think of the other ones.
Adrenaline junkies.
Dancers, actually.
Oh, really?
Transition really quick into this. So, people with yoga backgrounds as well, like strong, like they've taught or they've done it for a long time. Mainly because what we have is an endurance sport, not just power generation sport. Like, the tools that we have, the shield and the sword, amplify our efforts. You know, so when I need to do a sword strike, I'm only doing a half jab.
Right.
So I don't even need to be good at boxing in order to swing a sword really hard to crack your hip, you know. So a lot of it just comes from form, than more than it ever comes from strength.
I get it. Now, you had mentioned before that there was a show where people got like $10,000 for winning it. You didn't get $10,000 for winning tonight, but you were out there giving it your all. What motivates you? What kind of drives you to go for this fitness, goes for this athleticism, go for that kind of performance without monetary compensation?
So I bought a bus.
That's an interesting start to a story.
I was going to travel around the United States, say goodbye to all my friends, sell it, go to Italy, and just walk into the ocean. Like, that was my plan. Like, I'm a romantic and blah, blah, blah. But I figured if I'm going to kill myself, it has to be done right. So I was not mentally healthy for a while. And I don't think many people were for the pandemic. So anybody who made it through the pandemic, like, good for them.
Cheers to all of us.
But, you know, I was just bored with life. And then I found this thing that I really was awful at. And I forgot that I should just be doing things I'm bad at. Like, that's how I got in music. I was like, I was really bad at music. I was considered tone deaf. I was not allowed in college for music. And I still went to college. I got a degree and everything. Like, it's a thing. I just forgot that failing is okay. I think I had been in too many bad situations where people wouldn't allow me to fail. And so once I realized how much it helped me mentally, I've just dedicated myself to being good so that when I started teaching people and making sure that I learned everything that I could to teach people, that it had some credibility behind it. So
Sure.
I work super, super hard because I don't really care about winning, but I want my students to feel like their teacher is good and is teaching them the right things, because I want them to stay dedicated to this sport for whatever reason brought them here. So mine is very much, it saved my life, and I want to help other people. So when I give my all, it's in when I push through the things that suck really bad, it's more about, being a good leader for the people that look up to me right now, and that's a weird position to be in right at this moment. Didn't think that a year ago when I was on my back porch, just like training by myself. But yeah, if it helped me, I think it could help a lot of other people.
So you find teaching to be a rewarding experience?
Yeah, I certainly do. At least guiding people to a way that they can enjoy their lives. Life's
Oh, it can be.
It can be, yeah. and there's a tendency to ignore like all the microaggressions that people have against having to pay rent, and then the gas prices. Like, we all feel helpless in this world. All this violence put on us, and we're not even allowed to be violent back.
Right.
And this is like, we can be as violent as possible, and for the most part, your friend turns out just fine.
Right.
I mean, when I fought Christian tonight, threw him to the ground, just punched him in the face on the ground until
Right.
I was just kind of done with it.
That was very entertaining, by the way. Like, you heard the loudest dude in the audience. That was probably me.
Dude, man, yeah, Christian was sick, man. I feel real bad. He pushed through so hard, and so I tried some new things and got him to the ground and punched him in the face, but like, he came out okay. Like, he's
Right.
intact, right? We can be really violent towards each other in this particular sport versus like an MMA sport. Like, if I threw him down and punched him in the face, he'd have a busted eye socket.
Right. But he had a helm on, so he was better protected.
Yeah, he had a metal helmet. I had a metal gauntlet. And, like, they usually just stop
Sure.
each other. He's
Makes
pretty
sense.
well padded in there. So, yeah. So we get to be violent when the society tells us not to be, which is
Right.
upsetting. I think everybody should understand what violence means and what the consequences are, and we would have less conflict actually, because the consequences of violence is devastating.
Right.
If it goes too far.
But there's a catharsis to what we're doing out there. Like
Yeah.
what you were doing out there with this violence that is not violence, where it is like a very gratuitous display of violence, but hopefully we're not actually hurting our friends. There's a catharsis in it, though.
Yeah, we agreed. Like, this is consensual violence. I wouldn't be out there if the other person didn't want to do it.
Sure.
And when Christian, stopped the fight, and I was like, "Cool, that's as far as you could go." And I'm very thankful that you put yourself in that position, because like, I haven't fought in forever, and everybody kept saying like, "Oh man, you're just smiling ear to ear. You're smiling ear to ear." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm back in the cage
Sure.
for only a couple more weeks, and I get to enjoy it as much as I used to." That's a lot of reason why a lot of these people believed in me to open this gym, was because they saw how much I loved it and cared about it, and they haven't seen that on me in a while because I've been out, But
It brings a life back to us. I was out, of course, all of us were, because of the plague.
Right.
Out of doing what we love, and I felt my soul shriveling, as it were. But when I had a sword back in my hand and I was back on the field, there was something that returned about me that wasn't there without it. And I'm sure you feel the exact same way about what you're doing.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially I lost music with the pandemic.
Right.
The whole industry shut down. I was there the day Zach Brown said, like, "I'm selling everything." Like, crazy. Yeah, you lose a piece of yourself in the things that you find passion in. Like, some people find passion in their work. I get that, but not everybody fits in that puzzle. There's too many of us to actually fit into the capitalistic. We're not all gears.
Right.
We have to have something else.
Sure.
And most people do have something else. They just choose different things.
Right.
And if yours is boffer or sword fighting or, painting, like, you need to have that. You need to have it, and you can't have that denied. Like, it just, you won't be the same person. And anybody around you who loves you or gives a shit about you, like, should be angry if you walk away from something that you care about.
Sure.
Because they're not getting the same person that they loved. Like, you should work really hard to protect the things that you are dedicated to. If it's not for you, then it's for the other people that look at you and respect you and like you.
Sure. But I think myself and all of our listeners would also agree with that. There's something fulfilling about this, and if you have found what you love in life, walking away from it is detrimental. It's detrimental to everything that we represent. It's detrimental to everything that we love in this world. And so trying to continue, and again, now we've heard about the fact that you have heart issues, the fact that you're out there with health things going on, but you want to be there. It's a place that drives you and it makes you feel alive. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you're able to find something like that, because this world sucks sometimes, and we all know that. We on this show, we study military history, and we've been looking at the war in the Ukraine and everything else realistic, and a lot of times the world sucks, and yet people continue to find reasons to carry on, and if those reasons are consensual violence against their friends, that's outstanding. And one of the things that Kelsey was saying earlier is that despite all of this violence, despite all of the danger again involved, it's a comfortable space. People are welcome. People are allowed to be themselves. People are allowed to feel safe in this place. And that almost seems contradictory to what's going on in the ring.
I mean, if you look outside of our group and look at any other group, football, BDSM, whatever, anything that has like a tinge of violence to it, there are rules set in place.
Sure.
There is consent given, and people who keep the regulations in place. So like, yeah, we were out there being as violent as the rules will allow us, and we're checking in on each other. Like,
Sure.
Yeah, like you saw most of us were hugging each other at the end.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the second a flag was thrown, everybody stopped. Everybody, like, at the second any sort of fight was stopped, everybody pulled back. Like, there wasn't an actual urge to hurt people. There wasn't an actual urge to take people out of commission.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to hurt each other. We didn't want to injure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like I was looking at Ricky's helmet, and it's just covered with white paint from my shield. And how many times I just punched him, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that he was safe in his helmet. His helmet's very protective, but you know, it does soften him up. It makes him like think about what I'm doing and not what my partner's doing. Too,
Right.
You know. So, but yeah, he as soon as we started talking about it, he's like, "Yeah, man, I was putting on a good show. That was good. I was hoping you'd hit me more." I was like, "Yeah, that's what we do." It's not even though it's really violent, it's not a show. It's still very entertaining.
Well, there's this amount of showmanship to it. Again, I watched that fight, and again, you took him to the ground. It would have been easy enough to be like, boom, I'm done. But there was this whole thing, and it got the crowd riled up. I'm sitting there cheering. Everybody else is cheering. But that's almost like a wrestling sort of thing where it's emotion that doesn't actually cause injury. It's not actually as damaging as it appears, but it's very entertaining.
Yeah, we string that line between MMA, which it very much is. You saw punches, kicks, throws, all sorts of
real
crazy
punches,
shit.
real kicks.
Yeah, and most of them landed or hurt or knocked them. Like people are going to be sore tomorrow. My neck's going to be sore tomorrow.
Oh, sure.
But then there is the showmanship. We are a bunch of knights. We look larger than life out there. Like,
You do.
We ask you guys to suspend reality with us and address the inner child that you probably left behind. You know, in the toy store when Toys R Us closed.
All of us wanted to be that. All of us looked at the screen or at the books and said, I would love to be the armored knight. And looking out there in the ring, even if we weren't out there was a part of us that was looking at you, being able to project ourselves into that knightly image and beating the crap of our opponents out of the ground. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep forgetting, like, I had a certain castle that had knight toys, and I was a knight, like, and I was a black and a silver knight, like, and it's just all these weird flashbacks of like boxes of Halloween costumes in a garage somewhere in the Northeast, you know, like
Beating your siblings or your friends with a roll for wallpaper. Or
right,
something
yeah.
like
And
that.
how many people have taken, you know, some sort of wrapping paper?
Yeah,
And when they're
yeah,
done, they
yeah.
either lightsabered it or they used it as a sword, like which is like a sword. But like, yeah, how many people have pretended they were something that they weren't? And MMA, it's very much that person that's out there being a badass, and then WWE is very much like a soap opera. Whereas we're strutting that line where it's like, this is very violent. We have no scripts. Like, we just beat each other with our skills. But at the same time, we have these characters that we develop, and we don't have to be assholes to make
Right.
you like us either.
Sure.
Which MMA seems to project that you need to be a dick.
Well, there's definitely a positivity out there. Again, people are building each other up. I saw before a lot of fights, people going forward and not just tapping swords out of respect, but there were hugs. There were hugs and actual camaraderie exchanged right before the incredible violence happened. But it wasn't a matter of disrespect. It wasn't a matter of I mean, you know what I'm saying. You're the one out there.
I mean, we checked on each other a lot, and I was, again, on both teams tonight, so there was more of me going around checking on people, but they all did each other. Like, they'd go over if somebody fell down, prematurely because something happened. They'd make sure that somebody got in there and checked on them, asking each other, having water. Like, it does get a little different when you have people from out of town. But even at that point, like, when the absolute carnage is over, like, of just smacking somebody in the head with an axe until they are unconscious.
Right.
They walk over and they ask if they're all right. And usually give them a hug. So, I don't know. There's something different about this sport. Like you said, the word gratuitous. And gratuitous is a thing that should be applied to our sport. It is gratuitous violence. Because it is a deadly weapon. If I didn't have this armor on, I would die.
Oh, yeah.
From some of the simpler, less violent things that we can do with these weapons, right? So at any moment, if something failed, if my helmet weld didn't hold up or the tempering wasn't correct on my arms, I could lose a limb. I could lose my life.
Easily break a nose, easily break a jaw.
Yeah. At the very least, be maimed. And I have been maimed. My left arm was completely destroyed.
Right.
For a long time, I couldn't lift up a shield.
You wouldn't believe that looking out there tonight, by the way.
Well, thanks. It's been a long road, dude. It was at Team USA practice, and my arm was on a rail. And since it was practice, I didn't think anything of it. And somebody with a two-handed axe just hit me, anviled my arm, and shot my tendons out my back of my arm. So, fought a few more rounds after that, but I couldn't pick up my arm and didn't know what was going on, and because there wasn't any blood. It was just an impact wound. It just blew out.
Right.
So it wasn't really even bleeding much. But I think that level of just all out death-defying violence is what really builds the camaraderie around it. You have to walk at an edge in this sport. No pun intended. But at any moment, something can go terribly, terribly wrong. I think most people who do other sports, like football and MMA, or hockey, would be another good example of like a pretty violent sport.
Sure.
You're usually going to walk away from it. You're usually going to walk away. Only rarely in MMA is even that dangerous. Like, you get knocked out, cool, you're going to stop it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't see if I'm knocked out in that helmet. Like, I'm on the ground and you're beating the crap out of me and I'm just unconscious. Like, you won't know for 10 seconds.
Sure.
I'm sure rules are going to change to help that, but at this point, like, anything can happen. I got punched in the throat with a shield, and just coughed my way through the next minute. Yeah, like, but if it would have been any deeper, like, it would have collapsed my trachea or whatever the hell this thing is.
Dang.
I'm not a scientist.
You're an artist. You're not a scientist. You're an artist, sir.
Wanted to be a chemist when I grew up.
Oh, really?
Since 5, man. Yeah, just, music seemed to make more sense.
I dig it.
But,
well, Mickey, I have to say that, again, your performance was fantastic.
Thanks, man.
And I really appreciate you giving us this interview. And, I wish you exceptional luck in the future.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on the show. Here with me now, we've got Jacob the Bruiser of Nashville Armored Combat. Jacob, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I was watching you out in the ring tonight, Jacob, and I got to say that your performance was impressive.
Thank you.
And I very much appreciate you being out there. It was a fantastic show to watch.
It's fun, man. It's exhausting too, but it's fun.
Sure. Those are large people out there looking to hurt each other.
Yeah.
And there's such courage to stand up in front of that. Like, I do a sort of combat myself. We go out there and we hit each other with foam weapons, not with live steel. there's got to be a particular amount of chutzpah that goes into that. What makes you want to go out there and get hit with an actual sword?
So I mean, my goal is to never get hit.
Oh, sure.
You know, like it's like, all right, there's a guy with a huge axe. I'm just gonna like grab him. You know, like
Sure.
my mind says, like, you know, Big Jack out in the ring, he had an axe, and I was like, I gotta make sure I like either get out of the way or like block his axe or just stay out of the way.
Right.
You know, so that's my game plan, or block it, hit him first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like, I guess you could say scare him or intimidate him that I was faster than him.
Sure.
That's kind of like, you know, kind of almost like a mind game.
Sure.
Especially with bigger guys like that, they go out there thinking like, I'm huge, I'm strong, I got this big axe, I can just annihilate whoever's in front of me, and then you kind of take it away from them, and you can tell their mind game starts to kind of diminish a bit. I'm like, okay, none of my plans worked.
Right.
So that's kind of how I go at it, just like be faster, kind of get in their head a bit.
And not let them get in yours. Because again, with a big weapon like
it's
that.
happened to me. Like, personally, for me, like, the big thing is mind game. Like, I can, a lot of times when we're fighting, I can read people as they're, like, coming at me. Like, footwork, the way their knees move. Like, if I see someone's knees buckle a bit, okay, like, they're in their head. I did something that kind of made them second guess what they're doing.
Word.
They're tired, you know. So that's kind of always been kind of my, like, I wouldn't, a bit of a strength, I suppose, you know.
Right.
But it's happened a couple of weeks ago. I was fighting the HMB longsword champion, and dude's awesome. His name is Seto or Spencer. Spencer.
Now, for those who those at home who may not know what that is, what does that stand for?
The HMB.
Yeah.
Historical medieval battles.
Okay. And so like this person was like, he's a big deal.
Yes. Oh, he went to like, so each year. Every country has nationals, and you can go to these nationals. This past year was in February, and I think San Diego. And you know, there's like melees, 5-on-5s. There's duels, you know, different sword and board, long sword, polearm, and so you can fight your way to the top. And then eventually, if you're good enough, you can take a first place, and then you're invited to go overseas to what is called Battle of Nations, which is basically the Olympics of our sport. And like, all these countries send their best teams and best fighters out there. To represent, you know, each country.
Sure.
So you can go to these nationals and earn your spot. Like, we're supposed to actually have one here because there's different leagues in America.
Okay.
So we're supposed to have one here at our gym, but because of the Russian tension with Ukraine and all that,
Sure.
everything overseas got kind of canceled, postponed for next year or two. So we end up not having it. That was going to be in Finland. Battle of Nations.
Bit of tension there right now.
Yeah. You know, Battle of Nations was supposed to be in Romania, which is like right there by all that stuff. So
Right.
they kind of just canceled for a while. But yeah, this guy went to San Diego in February and beat his way to first place in longsword. And then, sweet dude, amazing guy, came down here and wanted to hang out with us and then do a cage fight against me. He let me know why he's a champion. It was pretty awesome. But he did the whole mind thing, like. I'm exhausted, you know, it's a warm night, it's humid, it's stormy, and I'm just like exhausted. I'm sitting down in between my rounds, and I look over past my, my buddy Josh, he was my corner, he was kind of giving me water and all that, so I couldn't see what's going on in front of me. And he steps aside, and I look over, and I see Seto just standing there, and I was like, oh my god, this guy ain't even tired. And he got in my head, like, right then and there. I was like, you got in my head, and I was like, I don't know what to do now. Like, I was like, I'm already exhausted. This guy's not even tired.
Right.
And then after all the fights happened, it's like, oh, no, I was playing a mind game. You're like, I couldn't sit down because my arm was like making it to where I couldn't breathe. So it's like I stood back up to be able to breathe.
You give the illusion.
Yeah, and then every time I would notice you like look at me, I was like, oh yeah, you know, I'm good.
Puff the
and
chest
then
out.
as soon as you moved away, I was like, like just breathing away. I was like, oh my god, when is this over? So he was super tired too, but he put on a presentation that he wasn't, and it got in my head.
Sure.
So the same thing happens in these fights. Like, I always try to like calm my breathing, you know, like especially during our breaks.
Sure.
And we stand back up for like a round two, and I look over and I see my opponent breathing heavy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna calm down for the next few seconds, because you can see like those shoulders moving. You can see him breathing heavy.
Right.
And I would just calm my breathing down, and kind of you can see that they're looking at me like, oh, this guy's not tired.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm wore out. And he's gonna just pommel me.
Right.
So yeah, mind game to me is very important.
Sure. And the flip side of that is important too. Like a couple of times tonight, I saw people who looked super tired, who they were almost
projecting an aura of fatigue. And then the second that the fight broke out, boom, there's this sudden energy, there's this sudden ability to just whoop. And you can see their opponent kind of stagger.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait a second, where did this come from? I thought my opponent was on the back foot.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah, like it's like they give you a false illusion.
Yeah.
It's cool. Our guy Christian does it a lot.
Exactly, that's the guy I was thinking of as you were talking about.
Yeah, Christian does it. He'll look super exhausted, and it's like, I think out of everybody here at our local fighting group, he's probably got the strongest will, or one of the strongest wills. Like
They had to drag him off the field, right?
I mean, yeah, this guy just will not stop. That's why when we do our OVLs, he wins most of them. He's hard to take down, and he just, like you said, he looks like he's about to just pass out. But the moment the fight happens, everything just shuts off for him, and he goes out there and he just whoops ass. You know, he's just a great fighter.
I don't know if that's an affectation or if that's just him like being tired until the adrenaline hits and he's ready to go. But it was effective.
Yeah,
that's not being
I
very
think
effective.
maybe it's a combination of the two. Yeah,
Okay.
like adrenaline kind of kicks over. It's like the whole. I mean, adrenaline has a lot to do with it.
Right.
You know, like I'm always worse my first couple of fights than I am later in the night. Like you would think, oh, I'm fresh, I'm not tired, I'm gonna do good first 2 rounds. And for me, it's opposite. Like the first 2 rounds for me, I'm just like anxious. My heart's beating fast. My lungs feel heavy. I can like taste the air, you know.
Sure.
And I get a couple of whacks in, get hit a few times. I'm just like, okay, I'm good now. I'm warm. My body's warmed up to the chaos. Adrenaline's taking over.
Yeah.
And then I'm good, you know. So I think maybe that has a lot to do with it. Just the adrenaline taking over, and his mental game is just like, I just gotta keep pushing
Right.
until it's over, and that's what he does.
Well, and the mental game with this has got to be more extreme too. Again, I as the listeners know, I do a foam fighting sport called Balagarth, and there is a mental game with that. There is posturing and all that sort of thing. But with what y'all are doing, you're out there to hurt each other. You know, like not actually hurt each other. You know,
Yeah.
But like you're large people in full armor with steel weapons, swinging without real restraint at one another with the intent of taking one another down. There's a certain amount of suspension of fear or suspension of personal harm that has to go into something like this. But in the same token, the cathartic reward has to be high.
I think that's what it is. Like, I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to explain. Because,
Yeah.
like, I do get in my head about it, like, because I do construction for a living, very physical job. And so it's like, if I get hurt, I'm kind of screwed.
Right,
you know?
right.
I don't get to sit in the desk on my computer and I can just break my leg and still do my job. I break a wrist and I'm screwed, you know. So that has crossed my mind a lot, especially if I get hurt, you know, something happens, and it's just gonna bust me out for a day or two. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what keeps me kind of just. It's the community, the people.
Sure.
So, like Mickey always talks about, and when we go to fight, it's not about us fighting another person. It's about us respecting their sacrifice.
Sure.
You know, so it's just like this weird, mutual. You know, I don't know. It's a weird. Like it's a mental thing. You just kind of get in your head about it, and like you respect the other guy. You understand what's about to happen, and like this primal, instinctive thing takes over, and you don't really think about getting hurt anymore.
Sure.
You just go out there. Like for me, I go out there to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to get hurt. You know, give it like 60.
But you want to whoop your opponent at the same time.
Yeah, like to a point. Like, you know, when I was fighting Frankie, I saw him getting tired. You know, I could have been rude and just kind of go in and just go for a kill shot, but
Sure.
I don't do that. You know, he's my friend. So I took a step back. I like let him recollect himself, come at me, and I'm just going to match his pace. So I think that, you know, so like the way we fight here during the fight nights, I think is a bit different than when we do it like real life events.
Sure.
Like if I went to qualifiers and I fought someone like Frankie, and I saw them get tired, I wouldn't just take a few steps back and let them recollect. I would just push in and just, you know, go for a kill shot, win the round. It's a real competition.
Right.
Here, you know, we're training, we're having fun, we're putting on a show for the people. You know, we're getting some armor time in. There's no need to kill each other because we got to do it again next week. We got to go to work tomorrow.
Sure.
So there's like this mutual understanding. It's like, let's have fun, let's go fight, let's try to beat each other, but be sensible.
Right.
Be in control. Pacing.
Absolutely.
That's very
Absolutely.
important.
Again, we're fighting our friends at this point.
Yeah.
We're not. It's not an actual enemy on an actual battlefield that we
Right.
actually have to kill.
Yeah.
Where they're fellow combatants. They're
Yeah.
people who we're going to have to walk off the field and talk to
Yes.
later.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's like our whole thing. Friendship.
Right.
Like we're really good at hugging.
Mm-hmm.
We're all friends. Like we hug a lot. We also hug like in judo a lot. We're like, I'm about to throw your ass on the ground.
Right.
It's like, sorry, dude. That's just kind of part of it. It's a bit weird, I guess. A lot of people don't understand it. Like my parents, for example, is like, how are you guys friends? And then go out there and beat the crap out of each other. It's like,
We're better friends for it.
yeah, it's like it. Honestly, yeah, it strengthens the friendship bond. Really,
Sure.
Like weird physical, violent thing.
I get it. I do the same thing with my friends. My favorite thing to do with my friends is to hit them with a stick. And that bonds us as friends. So
Yeah.
I absolutely understand it. But as you said, you're in construction, which means that your hands, your arms, your legs are your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Yes.
something specific that you do with your technique or with your style to help you protect your livelihood within this community? No?
Not at all. Not at all. Dude, I'm terrible at that stuff, dude. I just, for whatever reason, my hands are the ones that get hurt the most.
Sure.
I don't know if I just block poorly.
Mhm.
I judge it wrong. But I get hit in the hands a lot. Like my first nickname was Jacob the Handbreaker.
The handbreaker?
Yeah, and
as
it
in like
wasn't-
you were the handbreaker.
Yeah, like I wasn't breaking others' hands. It was just I was breaking my own gauntlets in my hands.
Good Lord.
So it's not like it was like this flat or anything. It's like, oh, he's just big hand breaking dude. It's like, no, I was just messing myself up. But so yeah, I always hurt my hands like all the time, and so that kind of sucks at work.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
But-
yeah.
I don't really do anything to prevent it. I just kind of go out there and hope for the best.
So what's the trade-off? Like you said, this is something that can potentially threaten your livelihood, and yet you get so much out of it. What is it that you get out of it that is worth wagering against the rest of it?
I think it's just the bond I get with my friends. The people here. The instinctive, like this, the weird animal side of our human beings, gets to free a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying we're violent humans, but as humans, we all have like somewhat of violent tendencies.
Oh, sure. This is a podcast about war games,
Yeah.
military science, all that. We know all about humanity's violent tendencies.
So I mean, back in the day, every man was a medieval fighter / farmer. Like they had to do both. You
Right.
know?
Right.
It's been always like that, and so it's like a weird, like you get to filter that sort of aspect of yourself.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you get to get that out of your system.
Sure.
I'm not gonna say it's like anger, but it's just like we're all instinctively a bit violent,
Sure.
protective,
Right.
whatever. We want to feel strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that kind of helps filter that. Like, I don't know if you'd call it emotion.
Oh, sure. I mean, I've heard. I mean, I know personally, like Belagarth and other like foam fighting sports, even something light like that, is really good for just like we say catharsis. Is really good for
Yeah.
mental health of getting out some of that sub tension, some of that even that insecurity, and saying, you know what, I can whack somebody with a sword.
Yeah.
I feel better about myself, and I feel better about life. And I imagine it's very similar for what you do.
To me actually like I make it. So I do a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of fitness, but I do fitness like heavy lifting and all that.
I can see your arms. I know.
So, well, I appreciate that. But so it's the same thing to me as like deadlifting, right? It's they say deadlifting is a high risk, low reward exercise.
Sure.
But the reward is like super grand. Like if you get this really heavy deadlift, you feel amazing afterwards. Like, oh my god, I just did that.
Right.
Like how could I, So it's like basically I can go sit on the couch and be lazy all day, or I can go out here and just kind of put my body on the line and maybe achieve some cool. And that's kind of what fighting is to me. Like, yeah, I can sit at home and do nothing.
Now,
I
what
can
brought
come
you
out
to
here.
this, by the way? Like,
What brought me?
Yeah, what? Because again, there's all sorts of safe ways to exercise oneself, all sorts of safe ways to not injure oneself. What brought you to this particular activity?
So about 2 years ago, I was like in a weird place in my life. You know, a lot of stuff happened, and felt kind of lost without a purpose. Like all I would do is go to work, and then go home and sit on a couch. You know, like surviving. I wasn't living. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I was looking for something to kind of like discipline myself. And so I started looking at martial arts because I always wanted to do martial arts and I never have. And so I started looking at the martial arts, a bunch of different schools, and it was New Year's Eve of 2020. We were going into 2021, and you know I'd never been a partier, so it was just like me and my brother and a couple of friends come up to my apartment and just have some drinks, and we're watching just TV, funny videos or whatever. And my buddy was like, "Oh, dude, you gotta watch this Night Fight show. Like it's all about you're all about it." And so there's a show on History Channel called Night Fight, and I think that's about when it came out. And so he like showed me like a couple episodes, and I was like, "Bro, how's this a thing?"
Right.
Like, there's no way this is a thing. So I was about to go to do some like Aikido and like some Muay Thai and all that, and I was like, "Screw all this."
Wait a second, I can hit people in full armor with a sword?
Yeah. So as a kid, most of us go out to our backyard with like our siblings or friends, and like, "Oh, there's a stick, man! I can just beat the crap out
Get
of
a
you."
dowel,
Yeah,
whack
like
each other. Oh yeah.
Yeah, like let's be nice, let's like we're 7 years old. Let's just take a dowel and beat the crap out of you. It's fun. And so we, I did that with my brothers growing up, and like would make like homemade weapons and stuff, and just be dangerous and goofy.
Sure.
And so, being an adult, realizing I can do what I did 15, 20 years ago in real life.
And better.
Yeah. Find a really cool community that does it. That's also another thing that kind of keeps me going is the community of people in the sport. It's like everyone's very welcoming. There's no judgment. You know, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you are,
Right.
what you did yesterday. As long as you didn't just go like kill or rape somebody.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like as long as you're a decent human and you just try and be good. We don't care.
There's a place for you.
You're welcome. Yeah. And for the most part, it's like that all around the world and in America. Like as far as I know, like every one of them has been really great. So that also, it's like this big family essentially.
Sure.
So that also helps me keep me here. But yeah, it's just the idea of I can be a kid in my late 20s with adult money.
Right.
I can go spend $2,000-$3,000 on this really cool armor.
And they are cool suits of armor, by the way. If y'all are on the YouTube channel, check it out because some of this armor we're talking about is on there. This fella right here that we're talking about is on there in his cool armor, beating people. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Yeah, man. It's a lot of fun.
It looks like it.
It's. I mean, like you said, it's a certain mindset. Like we've had people come out to like our free class because we always give out a free class, and like is this for you or not?
Right.
And then we can talk about memberships and do you want to continue coming or not? And there has been a lot of people that showed up once, maybe twice, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is a bit too much for me."
Right.
Or they'll see the danger aspect.
Right.
It's like, oh, I can actually get hurt doing this. Like, yeah, like it can.
It's
happen.
fighting.
Like I was fighting my friend Frankie, and I kicked him in the leg, and I thought I busted his knee. Luckily, it wasn't anything; it just hurt him. But back of my mind, I was like, "Oh my god, no, I didn't." Like, I was like, I was freaking out, thinking I hurt my friend.
Right.
Luckily, it was
that's
fine.
exactly what we saw, though. When I was watching in the ring, like he went down, and immediately, like I admit, I was one of the ones cheering because I was like, "Yeah, good hit," and then immediately I was like, "Whoa, wait a second."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah. As soon as it happened, I saw him go down, holding up on his knee. I was like, waving at the booth, like, "Hey, stop the fight!" And then he's pointing at other fighters because they didn't hear anything. So like I went in there and just kind of like I shoved my weapon and myself in between the fighters and grappling. I was like, "Hey guys, we need to stop. Like this guy's hurt." And then we're all checking on Frankie, making sure he's good. Luckily, it was just like a bruising where I kicked him kind of poorly. So.
But even something as violent as this, something as what appears out of quote unquote control as this, when somebody actually gets hurt, everybody's respectful of that fact.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's It's like I said, it's a weird mindset, man.
Yeah.
Like you almost feel like we're out for blood when we're out there, but we're not.
Right.
and when we are concerned for one another, you know, unless
Sure.
just for whatever reason I hate you, which is like never.
Right.
But yeah, like as soon as they get hurt, we stop the fight. We make sure they're okay, and if they're not, then we'll help them get out. Like, you know, Christian wasn't doing too hot. He's been getting over like some kind of flu sickness.
His endurance out there, though, you could tell he wasn't feeling good, but the man had the spirit.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That dude just doesn't stop, like, at all. But same thing, you know, he was just not doing great. So we're like, dude, just call it. Like,
Sure.
You know, you're probably not going to get hurt if you go for 2 rounds instead of 3.
Right.
Like, you're over here dying, dude. You know, let's just go ahead and call it. And then we all went out, checked on him. Was like, "Are you okay?" And, you know, he was fine, just exhausted. You know.
Right.
But yeah, that's the thing. Is like, we got their fight. Be violent, but also be in very much of control of our emotions. What we're doing. You know, we're pulling our strikes if we need to. You know, we can hurt somebody like really bad.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And we can take cheap shots, which we don't. And it's just that's what's cool about it too. Is like knowing that I can go fight anybody in there, and like I can trust this person not to really try to hurt me.
Sure.
And that's cool too.
So wait, you had just said, but I want to make sure that we iterate. How long have you been doing this?
This would be my 2nd year.
Your 2nd year. You've been doing this for 2 years.
Close, yeah.
And you look that good out there. What kind of conditioning are you doing to make sure that you're fit? Because again, that's full armor. What I do is we occasionally have leather armor, and we have weapons that are 11 ounces. What you do is significantly heavier in every single respect, and yet yourself at 2 years in, you're holding your own out there. What sort of conditioning, what sort of training goes into actually being able to do that?
Well, that's a lot if you want to be really good. Like, Mickey trains all the time, and it shows. I don't get to train as much as he does just because, you know, work. You know, I'm always busy doing stuff. So I train. I don't train as much as him. I do fitness a lot, basically every single day. Like early in the mornings, I go hit the gym. You know, and I always end my workout with like some kind of cardio, whether it's a bike for 20 minutes or, you know, Stairmaster or whatever. So it's not. I don't do like in like super intensive conditioning. It's just like, I don't know, I'm not going to say over the years because I've only done it for almost 2 years, but over the time I've done the sport, I learned to understand pacing and being like the mind game. Right. I'm in control of the fight. Right. As it's progressing.
You know? I can tell that. You're looking out there, and again, you tell me I've been doing this for 2 years, and I wouldn't believe you if you weren't telling me this over an interview, because you do have a command over the field when you're out there.
I appreciate that. But yeah, that's, I mean, I don't know. I guess that's just the mind game for me. It's very, very important to know where I stand and to see where the other fighter stands, and just, I'm not going to say I'm a control freak, but in that in that moment, I want to be in control.
Sure. Yeah.
And I want to see where you're at. I was like, okay, I'm gonna set the pace for this fight. Unless you push me harder, then I'll push back even harder. And it's always worked out for me.
Outstanding. Well, it looks like it too. Again, the show is fantastic. The athleticism is fantastic, and you're looking out there, and you can tell it's not choreographed. It is actual fighting, and these are fit athletes.
Oh, yeah.
They're out there. Again, you consider this maybe a nerdly sport. People being pretending to be knights, but I challenge anybody who thinks that this is a quote-unquote nerd community come out here. And I was right there in the front row. I could feel those hits. Like, I was sitting there on the thing, and I'm like, whoa, my goodness, this is fantastic. So there's nothing fake about this. There's nothing choreographed about this. This is live steel combat.
Yes, sir.
It's outstanding.
Yeah, we don't choreograph anything. It's just, we call it medieval MMA. You just kind of, you get paired up with somebody, and you talk to that person. It's like, hey, what weapon do you want to do? And you come to agree on a weapon, and like, all right, well, we got 3 1-minute rounds, we got 2 2-minute rounds, whatever we set up for. Let's have fun. All right. And then, you know, so like if I do, let's say, judo or weapons class the week before, I'll kind of remember going, it's like, oh man, I was doing this one cool strike. I mean, let me try it for real. And it may totally suck, or maybe it's very effective, you know. So that's kind of how I go in there. Like, I'm just here to have fun. Sure. I've learned this one, I don't know, judo trip. Let me try it. And I fell 5 times trying to set it up, but then maybe I get it once, and it's super rewarding. Sure.
No, and it looks like it too. Again, it looks like a lot of fun. If I was 10 years younger, I would absolutely give it a try. However,
give it a try anyway.
Oh, you know what? My apprentice does something like this, and I might just give it a try because I haven't actually gone and watched him, and I need to at this point because that was outstanding to watch. Mr. The Bruiser, I appreciate you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. That's
And
awesome.
I hope you good luck.
Thank you so
in
much.
the future.
Thanks for having me.
That's our show. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't had enough of the art of wargaming in your life, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, where I occasionally post funny and educational memes. If you want to get in touch with the show directly, you can email us at artofwargamingpodcast@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or concerns that you might have. Also be sure to check out all of our sister shows on the Earworm Network, including General Nerdery, Word Balloons, Fried Squirms, and more. We're working hard on having something for everyone. And again, you can find those at earworm.com. That's EARVVYRM. You can also find that in the show notes. But for now, this has been Yaga Malark, signing off.